Hello guys, welcome back to yet another exciting episode of the Bars 47 podcast that comes to you every single week here on TV 47. Today we have a great show lined up for you. We have the one and only Managing Director for Rescue CO, which is one of the emergency response companies here in Kenya. Let's hear what she has to tell us.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Dolcart, and I am a Managing Director at Rescue.co, and it's great to be on the show today.
So, Caitlin, thank you. Can you share with us what inspired you to found Rescue.co?
In absence of having available emergency services like a 911 or a 999, you recognize how important they are. I think having grown up in the US where emergency services are literally a touch of a button away, you don't ever think twice. But I think by living in Kenya over the last decade, you realize just how important such a system is.
Concerning Clinton Foundation, how did it help you in your idea to find Rescue.co?
Working at the Clinton Foundation was an amazing experience. It's actually what brought me to this part of the world. I was at the time living back in the US in Chicago, and I always was interested in moving more into kind of global public health. And so I took a position with the Clinton Foundation, and I worked across over 15 African countries. And I got to see what were some of the common needs and opportunities within healthcare. And one of them was emergency services. I think seeing it repeatedly, country after country or city after city, I think showed me. And so I think it was really the exposure and the experience of working with different governments, different private sectors, and recognizing that there wasn't a single country that had an available emergency response system.
And how did the experience at MIT help you in founding this?
MIT is a fun and fascinating and completely immersive, experience, not only educationally from an education perspective, but also from, the people that you meet and are surrounded by. I think I'd never thought of starting my own company. I had led a very traditional path. I had, been a management consultant and then worked at a big foundation, and I thought that my next role was going to be in finance. So I think that MIT really allowed me to think about a different opportunity, which was entrepreneurship. And what if I actually started a company that I think was greatly needed by billions of people around the world?
I think we've got, and we've not asked which year did you start Rescue CO?
I started Rescue CO in 2016. So I founded it straight out of graduating from MIT. I came back to Nairobi. I had a one-way ticket. And I promised myself that, in 3 months, if we hadn't raised initial kind of capital or we hadn't gotten our first customer, then I guess I would go back to a corporate job.
You have a Mama Link, an initiative. How does it work for our viewers who are at home and they don't know what stands?
The creation behind Rescue.co is really that we want to ensure that no matter who you are or where you are, you have access to emergency care. Being able to do that and deliver that at scale is, an immense challenge for so many different reasons. And one of those is for individuals who may not be able to afford, services. So while we do have, corporate memberships or we cover tourists, we have a program called Mama Link, which is in Nairobi County as well as in Siaya County, and that is free for women to access during childbirth. One of the number one reasons why you require an ambulance is because of being pregnant. And you think of that as, an exciting and one of your happiest days, but what if you actually needed emergency help and you couldn't get it? Obviously, the situation would completely change. And so what we do with Mama Link is to ensure that every single mother in Nairobi has access to emergency services, whether they live in Westlands or Kibera, it does not matter. But what we aim to ensure is that you don't lose your life because you couldn't get emergency help.
From your experience, is it workable for public-private partnerships?
Emergency services globally are always public and private partnerships. I think every country has assembled, ambulances or emergency services differently, but it's always a partnership between the two. You have the public who needs it, and oftentimes it seems like it's a basic right to have access to emergency services. You have governments who want to ensure that they can protect the people, whether it's a natural disaster or it's an everyday incident like a road accident. But oftentimes the individuals that are building the systems, the technology, delivering the services, operating in ambulances are the private sector. And Kenya is just the same, is that it is a collaboration between the public and the private sector.
For our viewers, how do you plan to expand Rescue CO to East Africa and the rest of Africa?
Well, first off, we've already started, so we have expanded. We are today the largest provider of emergency services in Kenya. Last year, we expanded to Uganda as well as to Tanzania. And I think the question for us on our mind is what's next and where next. 95% of Africa does not live in a place that has available emergency services. So it's really our opportunity to seize. And how we do that is what really matters.
According to you, have you been able to achieve a goal according to mortality rates? Have you been able to reduce the mortality rates when women are given birth, according to you?
According to me, yes. We have a number of rigorous studies underway, but I think that one of the most important indicators for survival is time to care. Oftentimes in emergency services or medicine, they call it the golden hour. If you can get care in under an hour, you have a much greater chance of surviving that emergency. When we started in Nairobi, it took over 3 hours to get an ambulance. So imagine if you're in Turkana or Samburu or somewhere remote, it could take days to get an ambulance. Right now, on average, we're under 15 minutes in urban settings and 25 minutes in rural settings. So if you look at time alone, there's no question that we have had to contribute to reductions in mortality.
And how do you manage to provide high quality services? And you moved from 172 minutes to 12 minutes. How did you manage to move from that time frame to 12 minutes?
So it actually was over 3 hours, so more than 120 minutes. And we oftentimes joke that the best Kenyan marathon runner could complete a marathon before you got an ambulance. So imagine Kipchoge, running a whole marathon before an ambulance arrived. Most people never waited that long because you just would give up and you would walk, or you would take a boda, or you take you take a matatu. The way that we did it is we mapped and ensured that we knew about where every single ambulance existed. I think a big misconception is that Kenya or East Africa or Africa-wide does not have emergency services because there aren't ambulances. And so we dispelled that because we found every single one of them. And we got them up to the level of care that they need to be at to provide life-saving care. We put them onto a central technology platform so that when an emergency call comes in, it's not a random guess of who should I call or who might be nearest to this emergency. But we know exactly where the nearest available ambulance is located and are able to dispatch that. We've recently launched air evacuation services as well, because there are many parts of the country that are inaccessible, during rainy season, or just purely inaccessible. Like, how would you rescue someone on the top of Mount Kenya? You need a helicopter. And so that has also allowed us to reduce further the time to care, because you can get to someone much faster, or even access them in the first place if you have an airplane. But the easiest thing was just finding every single ambulance, ensuring that you knew exactly where they were in real time.
And how can somebody who is in, let's say, Turkana, Samburu, that you've mentioned, how can one access the services of Rescue.co?
So we provide our services and aim to provide our services to everyone. The way that we do that is either through government partnerships, or if you work at a company, the company provides it, or you sign up directly at rescue.co.
And how can somebody chip in? Individuals, corporates, how can they chip in to work with Rescue?
Become a member. The more members that we have, the better the service, the bigger that we can grow, and save more lives together.
What would you like to share with policymakers concerning health, emergency response. Policymakers, the Ministry of Health that is responsible, what would you like to share with them?
I would love to share that I think many have taken the right move that, I mean, even within the constitution in Kenya, emergency services are a right. Every Kenyan has access to emergency services. I think I would probably have it more for the individuals implementing. It's the question always that comes to mind is how. Is you can put in a policy that someone has access to a certain service and should have a constitutional right. But how does that actually play out? And how do you ensure that you work with innovative companies like ours to ensure that you can actually deliver upon your promises?
And there's FLAIR. You've not talked about FLAIR.
FLAIR is the bedrock of our services. We would not exist if we did not have FLAIR. FLAIR and Rescue were all part of one same company. FLAIR is our technology. It's actually a suite of applications that power the entire system, from the patient to the hospital, to the dispatch center, to the ambulances who are navigating to the emergency. But I would think about it as the backbone. Without it, we would not have the capabilities that we have. Rescue is literally the service that we provide, and that's the brand that individuals, whether they're patients or customers, know who we are from our services.
We're in a fast-moving world where technology advancements have been the talk of town. How have you been able to use the technological advancements to better rescue people?
I mean, technology, if we did not use technology, if we're using pen and paper to dispatch ambulances, they would be incredibly slow. So technology forms every part of our strategy and every part of our business, from identifying where is the nearest available ambulance to which hospital actually has the capability and capacity to care for this patient. I think what we're now looking at is, of course, AI, and how do we more intelligently identify certain words within an emergency call, oftentimes which are incredibly frantic. Someone's yelling at you that they need an ambulance. They're not ready to just answer question after question. So how do you pick up certain keywords and be able to, over time, understand that those keywords equal that this person might be having a heart attack, or things like that. So I think that the future is here now, and there's so many opportunities in emergency services to improve the tailored care that you can provide in an incredibly stressful and time-sensitive situation.
Can you share a moment that really touched you and showed you that you're true to your mission?
Sure. So I, as a fun fact, I'm a twin. So any stories that I hear about twins, I love, because it feels just so personal. I remember when we started the company back in 2016, you could not find an ambulance that had an incubator. So you need an incubator if you have to move a premature baby or a very small baby from one facility to the next. And I remember it took us, I don't even know how long, but let's say it took us hours to find a hospital that would provide us an incubator to put in the back of an ambulance such that we could move little twins from one facility to the next. They needed to get to Kenyatta Hospital because they needed more advanced care. Today, if you had a call where you needed to move baby twins, we can do it in a matter of minutes. And so I think that those are the stories that, personally touch me the most, because I just realized that in those minutes you can change the future of that person. It's a little baby, and only imagine who they could become. Maybe our next Kenyan president.
Are there any innovations that make you proud?
Innovations? I think the model that we've created, I think that what we've done in Kenya and East Africa, it's been done in parts here and there, but I think together, really what we've done is quite innovative, from the way that we've structured it financially, to the way that we've built our technology, to the team and the roles that we've hired for. I think altogether, each and every element is innovative. I feel like if you're not innovative, your business won't exist. So it's a necessary part of running a company as well.
you've said that you've partnered with Nairobi County and Siaya County. Have you been able to get to reach out to the national government?
We have. I mean, we're definitely exploring opportunities, particularly with the launch of the social health insurance and the rollout of that. And so stay tuned.
What's your parting shot?
My parting shot is to recognize that every second counts.
Thank